Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, America's #1 trusted resource for realtors who demand authentic, real-time coaching. Starring award-winning real estate coaches Tim and Julie Harris. Get ready for unfiltered, full-strength honesty about what is truly working to get you into action and make you money in this new real estate boom. Now to our hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
I have a question for you, and I want you to answer this question honestly. Now, this question is going to be listened to and hopefully answered by literally thousands of agents. Here's the question. Do you believe that hard work at the end of the day is what provides long-term lasting success? Or do you believe that you can shortcut it and you can buy it and that you could game it and that you could delegate it your way to long-term lasting success? So here's a thought for you. How many of you are struggling right now in your real estate business trying to decide what direction to take in 2015 in your real estate business? How many of you right now are being seduced by people trying to sell you leads, people trying to sell you, let's be honest, gimmicks that really don't have any track record for success because of the fact that you think that that's the path you have to follow to be a successful long-term in this business? How many of you are struggling needlessly and oftentimes building debt because you, frankly, are trying to avoid the things that maybe will get you the best results in your business? So I wrote down a lot of points for you today. I wrote down 4 really critical points. And the first thing I want you to write down is whatever you're avoiding the most is where your growth needs to be. So whatever you're avoiding the most in your real estate business is where the most intense focus every single day needs to be. Write down what you're honestly avoiding. You know, some of you are going to start out the list, and it's going to be, the list is going to be cleaning your office. It's going to be organizing yourself. It's going to be all those types of things. Those are all good to have on the list, but keep going. What else are you avoiding? Are you avoiding, for example, knocking on that for sale by owner's door? Are you avoiding calling your centers of influence and past clients? Are you avoiding doing more social events? Are you avoiding actually learning a real listing presentation? Are you avoiding learning how to overcome seller objections about price, about commission? So I want you to be honest and really be honest with yourself and write down a list of all the things you're avoiding. And if you don't have a long list of things you're trying to avoid, you're just not being honest with yourself. Because everyone listening to this show is trying to avoid or is actively avoiding. Here's proof that you're avoiding stuff. Are you buying buyer leads? Okay. Are you buying buyer leads from Zillow, Trulia, or literally one of the 200 other companies that are selling buyer leads? If you are, it's because you're avoiding learning how to generate your own buyer leads. Interesting, isn't it? Are you avoiding, for example, having a real coming to Jesus session between you and your checkbook, you and your finances, you and your, the amount of maybe savings that you do or don't have? Are you avoiding really being responsible for your own financial future? Well, it's probably because if you were to do that, if you were to actually sit down and look at it, your financial picture like a business person should, and you are a business person, you probably discover that, guess what, maybe things that you thought were working aren't working. For example, maybe the source of business that you've been sending, maybe you're doing radio ads and you think the radio ads are getting you business, and you've just fooled yourself into believing it without actually going in there and tracking to see how many transactions you get from those specific things. So here's the thing. The biggest black hole is what we avoid. In other words, whatever we're avoiding the most is, again, where your growth needs to be. And it's also, frankly, where and what you need to be really putting under the microscope and stop doing in most cases going into the new year. Look at every single thing, including, if you're one of our coaching clients, our coaching. Look at every single thing you're spending money on. And if you can't see a 5X or 10X return, don't do it. And I'll give you another little hint. You're about to be inundated with telemarketers calling you for trying to sell you every possible, done-for-you widget there possibly could be. You're going to be getting hammered, absolutely mercilessly hammered with solicitations starting in about 30 days. And you need to become really good at asking questions before you even give that person that's trying to sell you the whatever on the phone for your business even a second. You need to ask them what guarantees do they have. You need to ask them if they have a contract. Now, I'm going to tell you the real litmus test about the do you have a contract question. If they're trying to get you to sign something that obligates you for 6 months or 12 months of paying for their service, I pretty much can guarantee you that whatever they're selling doesn't work and they know it. Why? Because if what they were selling worked and it worked for you, why would they need to try to hold you to a contract? Doesn't make sense, right? I mean, if you're signing up for something and it's really working as advertised, you're not going to want to quit. Heck, you're going to want more of it. And yet, interestingly enough, these guys get you to sign contracts. So anytime anyone's trying to sell you anything that requires a contract, you need to immediately say, no, thank you. My coach has told me that, I need to avoid companies like you. So keep that in mind. So the topic of today's call, of course, and I see a lot of you just jumped on, is the real truth about long-term lasting success. And the first point I wrote down, again, just to repeat for all of you who have just logged or for basically listening a little bit later than the normal start time, is be honest with yourself about whatever you're avoiding, because whatever you're avoiding the most is where your growth needs to be. And also, I'm asking for you, the second point I wrote down is start to really be professional business people about analyzing what you're spending money on in your business. And I would start absolutely positively cutting any buyer lead sources that you're spending money on. Just completely stop doing them. And go through everything else you're spending money on. If you're buying anything on the premise that it's going to be branding for you, there's another red flag, okay? Don't be suckered into believing that branding is worth anything. It's not. So don't be spending money on branding. Don't be spending money on something that you cannot absolutely positively see a 5 or a 10x return from. You have to absolutely positively say, I spent money on this and this is what I got. We actually ask our coaching clients to hold us accountable to that standard. By the way, we don't have contracts. When you become one of our coaching clients, if you're not 100% satisfied with the services that we're providing, guess what? We don't hold you to the contract because there isn't one. Make sense? So again, the real truth about long-term lasting success. Now, here's the next point I wrote down, point number 3. In order to have long-term lasting success, after you've been honest with yourself about what you're avoiding and realizing that's probably where your growth needs to be, after you realize that one of the greatest destroyers of long-term success is spending too much of your time and energy on gimmicks, in other words, those things that probably most of these companies are going to start trying to sell you in about 30 days. Once you're really honest with yourself about why you're attracted to those companies, because they're playing into your frankly, they're playing into your weaknesses. If they're going to sell you buyer leads, in your mind you're saying, well, that's one less thing I have to do, i.e. learn how to generate my own leads, learn how to become a listing agent. So realize what they're doing. They're very craftily selling into your weaknesses, which you will have vetted out yourself when you've asked yourself that first question. So the next thing I wrote down, another long-term, to have long-term lasting success, is you've got to be intense when you're at work. Now, the next point I wrote down, I'll just kind of tell you right now, is having a daily minimum standards or also a daily schedule. But really, those things go hand in hand. Long-term lasting success all comes from doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. So let's just basically really drill down on that point. How often do you wake up in the morning actually feeling like working, actually feeling like talking to strangers, let alone your centers of influence and past clients? How often do you actually wake up feeling motivated? If you're like most of us, if you're lucky, 10% of the time. Some people never feel motivated. And then what happens? We get into this cycle of believing that we have to feel a certain way before we'll actually get into action. There are entire industries that are designed around playing into that myth about having to feel before you get into action. There are speakers, there are books, guys, there's whole lifestyles really that people have built themselves up to believe that they have to, feel this before they get that. You understand what I'm talking about. I am making fun a little bit of the whole ethos of The Secret. I am making fun of the whole idea that you can do something other than getting into action to manifest what you want in life. Because the bottom line is the action is what is ultimately the bottom line. That's the brass tacks. So doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. That leads right into intensity. So when you're doing what you don't want to do at the highest level, it's not just making your contacts, let's say. Say you're one of my personal coaching clients, and one of your daily minimum standards is you have to make 10 contacts a day. So 10 contacts a day is you can either make those with intensity, in other words, with the intent of setting an appointment, or you can just basically make the contacts just so you can tell your coach on your next coaching call that you made your contacts. You guys know what I'm talking about. So how do you get yourself to actually do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level? Do you need to have passion? Do you need to have passion for selling real estate? No, you do not. Do you need to have like some sort of overwhelming, huge have to in order to basically get great results when you're, working in your real estate business? In other words, have you guys ever noticed that most of you are somehow miraculously become supermen and superwomen as soon as you have some big financial breathing down your back, right? I mean, as soon as you have some big financial problem, then all of a sudden making contacts and doing deals, no problem whatsoever. But as soon as you're out of that danger zone, we have this tendency to slip back into complacency. Well, what if mentally you could keep yourself at that same level of intensity? In other words, not manifesting, but actually creating inside of you the same level of drive that you have when you're under pressure, but you do it all the time. Now, you don't do it all the time for 24 hours a day. You do it all the time for 2 or 3 hours a day. That's the key. So put all these pieces together. How many of you right now are feeling attracted to trying to basically buy leads and do other things like that? The bright, shiny object is what we call it. How many of you naturally feel attracted to that? Well, guess what? That's normal. But what's abnormal, especially after you've been exposed to information like what you get from this radio show, is to continue on that path actually believing that it's going to get you anywhere, because it won't, except more in debt, except more frustrated, except, frankly, further away from the success that all of you should be experiencing, especially in this crazy, incredible recovering real estate market. So start with a mindset that really doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level, it really does predetermine, as long as you can embrace that concept, everything else that comes after that. Waiting for you to feel a certain way before you actually get into action will mean you probably never get into action. You might show up to work, you might go on realtor tour, you might go on a listing presentation now and then, you might work with some buyers, but you're just not getting the results that you want. So translate all this into actionable steps. What do? I want you all to, again, especially if you're our coaching students, I want you to accept the fact that every single day for at least a few hours, you have to, what we call, go to the coal mine. You have to, have the visualization of you putting on your coal mining hat, you grabbing your pickaxe, you grabbing your bucket, and you're going down to the coal mine every single day. And every day before you come back out of the coal mine, you have had to have filled your bucket. That is essentially the work that you have to do for 2 or 3 hours a day. That is the lead generation. That is the appointment setting. That is the pre-qualifying. That is the leads, the negotiating of the contracts. That's the going on the listing appointments. You have to have done the work every single day, not just now and then, not just basically, when you're not busy, not just, a lot of you fall into these cycles where you make good money and then you make no money. Why? Because you were at one point, typically 3 or 4 months ago, you were under a lot of pressure to produce, so you were able to make contacts, set listing appointments. You took listings almost like it was easy, like you couldn't even believe how everything was just sort of magically coming to you. It's because you were intensely focused on it, right? You see, you can do this. You've done it before. And then what happens? Those deals go into contract. You then, stop doing the lead generation that it actually started this whole beneficial cycle for you. And then what happens is 3 or 4 months later, you have another famine cycle. And then, oh my God, I'm feeling stressed again. Then you do it all over again. The way to break out of that cycle, again, going back to this point, it's the 4th time I've said it. It's really critical that you understand it. Long-term lasting success comes from doing what you don't want to do, when you don't want to do it at the highest level. So work off a schedule, have daily minimum standards. Coaching students, make sure you're doing your real estate treasure map, your business plan, get it completely done before the end of this year. Part of that is a very, I think, methodical walkthrough of how to go about making your own schedule, and then basically setting your own specific goals in the 5 categories of life. All that's part of your real estate treasure map, so make sure you complete that. Really critical you start the year with that completely done if you've not done it already. And then, once you have that daily schedule, once you have those daily minimum standards, once you have that concept that, yes, you can manifest and create whatever you want in your life if you're willing to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. In other words, that intensity of work for that 2 or 3 hours when you can just embrace that concept, then that's when your whole life pivots. That's when everything changes, because then you realize for the first time that you actually can control your destiny when it comes to finances. You don't have to wait around for the email that's a listing referral or the lucky deal that lands in your lap. You can every single day literally create opportunities because you've chosen to, because you put yourself in a place where you accept the fact that you are in control of this, and it doesn't have to be dependent on some bright shiny object sending you leads. You guys, some of you have never known the real estate industry other than buying leads. If you've been in this business for less than 10 years, probably you actually believe that the best way to get business is buying leads. It's not. That's all new. This whole buyer leads especially, and next year we're going to see the advent of buying seller leads. Guys, it's all basically a waste of money. You can do it all yourself. It's so easy to do. That's the thing that's really crazy, is generating leads is the easiest thing in the world to do because everybody either wants to buy or sell real estate. Everybody you know. There's no shortage of leads. Why are you guys spending so much money on buying leads when you can do it yourself? How much better will you feel if every single day when you wake up, you know you can self-generate your own leads and you don't have to wait around for somebody else to send you a lead? It's an interesting thought. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, I'm going to give you very specific action steps on what you need to be doing now to break this cycle and to really get in control of your business.
Are you ready for 2015? Do you have a plan in place to make it your best year ever? Or are you still struggling in your career and waiting for your ship to come in? You can make this your best year ever, but only if you take control of your career and create an action plan for success. Join thousands of top producing agents across the nation who have turned to Tim and Julie Harris Real Estate Coaching to help them achieve top producing production and performance. Coaching works, and that's a fact. 10% of agents complete an amazing 90% of all transactions because they have a coach. Coaching and training is a critical part of a successful real estate career, but don't just take our word for it. Here's what Steve Brown, the president of the National Association of Realtors, had to say.
Well, I'll tell you why it's critical. There are some brokers who, when they hire indiscriminately. They just don't even look at the training, or they don't provide the training and the education that a new agent needs in the marketplace. As a real estate agent, you've got to associate yourself with a firm that's dedicated to your professionalism and your growth, and then the services like a personal coach, like Tim, you and Julie do. There are very few real estate people like you, so personally and passionately involved in our industry. And thank you for what you do for our industry. Both of you are a wonderful voice for all that's best in the realtor organization in our industry. So I thank you.
If you want the production and performance that comes with being a top producer, then you need a coach. Not just any coach, but the leaders in coaching today. Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. We provide you with industry-leading one-on-one coaching with a trained professional coach, along with all the lead generation systems, scripts, presentations, team building, and business planning tools you need to dominate your local real estate market. We offer affordable pricing with no long-term contracts, and our entire coaching staff are trained professional agents with top producing track records. Take action and visit us at freecoachingcallsforagents.com to schedule your free coaching call with a trained real estate professional. There's no risk and no obligation, just a free, personal, one-on-one call with a trained professional coach. Join the elite 10% of agents who make all the difference in today's marketplace. Visit freecoachingcallsforagents.com to get started. Again, that's freecoachingcallsforagents.com.
You know, when we interview a lot of our top producing agents, most of which are some of the, the top selling agents in the United States. You guys can go back and listen to our past radio shows, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. You'll hear a very consistent theme. You know, it's interesting. Top producing agents, they almost always say the exact same thing. I don't know how many of those interviews you guys have listened to, but basically they're saying the exact same thing. Why? Because long-term lasting success, there's not a big mystery to it. There isn't. They're not holding anything back. I know a lot of you guys listen to those interviews because I get the emails afterwards, and you're skeptics. Oh, they're just saying that it's this, that, and the other, but they really have the secret sauce, the secret recipe. We even get that from some of you guys who are signing up for our coaching programs. You're thinking, well, Tim and Julie, they're not giving us, they're going to give us the real secret information when we join the XYZ program. We don't play those games, guys. The fact is that success, it isn't a big mystery. It isn't. I mean, learning to have long-term lasting success, especially in real estate, it really comes down to really 5 critical points, and those are the 5 points I'm going to give you right now. Now, these are not necessarily about lead generation, though I know that's where a lot of your focus is. A lot of you guys focus thinking, well, my biggest problem is I don't have enough leads. Well, I think that's partially true, but the biggest focus should be, and your biggest challenge is, your mindset, not just about leads, but about your business, your mindset about being a professional, your mindset about essentially what your expectations are from yourself and from your real estate business. And you guys have been hearing us say this now, especially our coaching students. We've been saying this for over 2 years. We are in the very beginning stages of what's going to be a fantastic 7 to 10 year real estate boom. Just accept that. Don't be skeptics about that. Don't challenge that. Don't think that we're wrong about that. Accept it, and then when you do, open your mind to the fact that you can, again, start over. Some of you are still rebuilding after the bust. Some of you are maybe just coming into the real estate industry, and you're trying to realize the potential that this has. Well, you are in the right place at the right time. But you've got to embrace the fact, and here I said it, now this is going to be the 5th time. Are you guys remembering this? True long-term lasting success comes from doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level, all right? So now I wrote down 5 specific action items for you guys, so please write these things down. Now these are the kinds of things that you're going to hear from any top-producing agent. These aren't necessarily sexy points. These aren't the points that are going to get everyone applauding, but this is the truth. This is what it takes. This is the work part of your job. Here it is, point number 1. Have a schedule. You've heard this before from us. Have a schedule that's designed around contacts and setting appointments. Have a schedule in the morning. And I could talk about your typical morning schedule. It really does depend on the individual agent. There's not a perfect schedule. Some of you, frankly, are terrible in the morning. You have horrible energy in the morning. You're grouchy in the morning. Some of you are better in the evening. Some of you are better in the afternoons. We have part-time, they have full-time jobs. We have lots of agents that are very successful in other careers, and they just work real estate Saturday morning, and they make more money than most full-time agents do. That's not unusual. Well, guess what, guys? You have to have a schedule that's designed around your, obviously, schedule, but also designed around when your natural, high energy points are going to be during the day. Everyone's different. Most people, when they are following a schedule in the morning, do have a tendency to get more stuff done. The problem with not scheduling the hard stuff first is that you'll have a tendency to procrastinate it and not get it done. But the bottom line is, point number 1 is have a schedule designed around making contacts and setting appointments. Now, we always will and never deviate from getting you guys everything we can to get you guys to be listing agents, because listing agents, that's the only future in this industry. If you think you're going to be able to have a long-term flourishing career of being a buyer's agent, you're just wrong. Look, guys, how much has changed in just the past 12 months. The coming soon, it was a big controversial thing. Oh, my God, these evil listing agents, they're doing these coming soon things, and they're trying to double in their own listings. And now there's MLSs that are offering coming soon in the MLS. You see how the industry is evolving to really put the pressure on the buyer agent into things? You guys remember 5 years ago, I think realistically 7 years ago? You know what? Buying buyer leads 7 years ago in a lot of cases made all kinds of sense. It just did. The leads were inexpensive. There weren't a lot of agents buying them. You could actually do quite a few deals that way. But now what's happened? It's become oversaturated. There's too many people selling buyer leads. You buy a buyer lead from Zillow, and it turns out that same lead is also being sold to 10 other people because that same person also went to Trulia and a bunch of other websites. And so it's become oversaturated. That's what's happened. So if you guys want long-term lasting success, accept the fact that you have to have a schedule designed around contacts and appointments. And definitely the contacts we're asking you to focus on are listing contacts and listing appointments, right? Accept the fact, again, that you have to learn to be a listing agent. Hey, that's what we do. We're the best at it. Let us help you. Point number 2, part of the schedule, right, to reinforce point number 1, part of the schedule is to have daily minimum standards. It's not enough just to have a schedule. You have to have a daily minimum standard. Remember I was giving you the analogy of going in the coal mine with your pickaxe and your bucket, and you're going to go down there and you're going to try to pick up your, you have to fill your bucket. Well, that's what your daily minimum standards are. So the daily minimum standards would be the number of contacts you're going to set every day. Obviously, the number of appointments you're going to focus on setting every day. In some cases, it's setting appointments maybe once or twice a week. Lots of my personal coaching clients have a daily minimum standard of setting 1 listing appointment a day. Other daily minimum standards that are, not necessarily business related, but are part of a balanced life are going to be praying, meditating, showing gratitude towards the people you love, certainly exercising, all these types of things that you should schedule so that it happens every single day. There is an accumulation effect that comes from doing positive things every single day for obviously your body, your soul, your spirit, and of course your finances and your education. Point number 3 that I wrote down is minimum standards for the clients that you'll work with. Now, this is a common occurrence that I'm seeing happen more and more. And again, it's because there's more agents entering into the industry, and you guys are having to compete for all the best leads. You guys are starting to spend too much time with unmotivated sellers and unmotivated buyers. So have minimum standards of the folks that you'll work with. So a minimum standard for a seller would be a seller that has to sell versus a seller that wants to sell. And the easiest and quickest way to know which they are is ask them, Mr. Seller, do you have to sell this house or do you want to sell this house? They will tell you. Now, in some markets, I'm thinking of all of our coaching clients in, Bev Hills, and I'm thinking of you guys in Manhattan and some of you in Miami and the other expensive areas where we have coaching clients, downtown Seattle. You're dealing with genuinely wealthy people, and yes, you're right. They can always rent their property opposed to selling it, and that is what they'll do. That's the reason it's really critical in 2015 that you're, Tim and Julie Harris real estate sales and management, because you have to be able to offer those well-to-do clients an option, because in many cases they don't have to sell, so just assume lease it. At the very least, then you keep the relationship. So again, have daily minimum standards for your sellers, and then you have minimum standards for the buyers you'll work with. They have to be pre-qualified. They have to have realistic expectations. They have to basically jump to it when you tell them about a new property. And most importantly, and again, this is controversial, it shouldn't be, but it is for a lot of you, they have to have signed an exclusive buyer agency agreement stating they're just going to work with you. Would you take a listing if they hadn't signed an exclusive? I know some of you on the East Coast do that. They're open listings, but for the most part, no, of course not. So why is it that you work with buyers without any sort of contractual obligation to you? Now, I would suggest that you put in an easy exit listing. So, for example, if they're not satisfied with the services that you're providing with, say, 48 hours notice, you'll cancel any sort of agency agreement that you have with them. That way it keeps them in control, but the bottom line is they'll have made a commitment to you. Point number 4. Ready for this one? Embrace accountability. A lot of you guys request free coaching calls at freecoachingcallsforagents.com. And you guys are asked to answer, I think, 5 or 6 questions. And one of the questions is, have you ever been coached before? And I really look for the answers on those because that's very telling. Some people have never had a coach of any variety before, or frankly, any sort of anything externally holding them accountable. That tells me a lot about the person. What do I mean by that? If you look at the most successful people in any industry, they'll always have some form of accountability in place holding them to task. None of us are good at holding ourselves accountable, not as much as we are, so for example, I try to work out every day, but when I get into an accountability agreement with Julie and we're holding each other accountable to, working out every day, I work out more intensely, more regularly, okay? So external accountability works, and one of the absolute surefire long-term signs that someone's going to be success long-term, that is whether they embrace accountability. And the last point I wrote down, and this is especially important this time of year, again, those of you who are requesting free coaching calls and you want our opinions on this product or this service, here's the bottom line. Again, aside from what I said at the first half of the show, if they're asking you to sign a contract, the answer is automatically no. Anyone asks you guys to sign a contract, for anything in your business, you have to say no. Okay, never, ever, ever sign a contract with a coach or with a lead providing service or with anybody, because when you do, you give away all of your power. And if they truly offered a good service or a good product, doesn't it make sense that they wouldn't be forcing you to sign a contract? Isn't this just common sense, guys? So the last point I wrote down is reject what's easy, embrace the difficult. Reject anything, especially that's being offered to you as being easy, because for sure it's a gimmick. So reject what's easy and embrace what's difficult. Why is that great advice? Why is that sage advice? Simply for the fact that so few people are going to embrace the difficult. Most people are going to embrace the easy, or at least they think the easy is going to get them there. Guys, the bottom line with all of this is, this the sixth time I've said it, hopefully you guys are embracing this, right? I know it's difficult to hear, but it is the truth, that doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level is the number one rule for long-term lasting success. Don't wait until you feel like it. Don't try to do it on your own. Embrace external accountability, and absolutely, positively understand that look for what's difficult. Remember the first question I asked you, the first thing I asked you to do is write down a list of the things that you're avoiding. Guess what? Those are all the things that are difficult for you. What would be, let's say, for example, you wrote down on your list something that agents typically have a fear of, which is contacting a for sale by owner, okay? Let's just say that's on your list. You wrote it down. You drive by FSBOs. You know about FSBOs, but you want nothing to do with them. You drive by with your eyes forward going, la, 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 I don't see that FSBO, okay? Right? You're guilty of that. So what's on the other side of that fear? In other words, if you were to take the time and overcome that fear, and you were to embrace the fact that you love, by the way, don't call them FSBOs, call them unrepresented sellers. If you were to love an unrepresented seller, if you understand that most times the unrepresented sellers are just trying to sell it themselves just because they didn't know a realtor, so if you were to embrace the fact that these are just opportunities, these are people essentially putting signs in the yard saying, please help me, I don't know anyone, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, okay, change your mindset. What's on the other side of that? Think of the opportunities that you're going to create to help other people. Think of the money you're going to make because you are willing to do what's difficult. You are willing to do what was difficult for you. You were willing to reject what was easy and embrace the difficult. Guys, if there's anything that we can ever do for you, we are absolutely positively focused on doing, providing the best quality coaching and training for individual real estate practitioners. We are not focused on becoming the largest coaching organization in the country. We used to have the most agents as coaching clients for quite a while, and we have rejected that business model because we've realized that you cannot provide high levels of personalized, individually tailored coaching and training if you're just focused on basically getting the most number of agents to join your program. It just doesn't work like that. So if there's anything that we can ever do for you, please request a free coaching call at freecoachingcallsforagents.com, freecoachingcallsforagents.com. Or remember, you guys can always email me directly, coachtimharris@gmail.com, and I'll talk with you on the radio tomorrow.
So like a lot of you, our business is growing quickly. Matter of fact, since the beginning of the year, we have added between coaches and salespeople over 50 people. And one of the constant challenges we have is, like you, communication. So how do we all keep in contact with each other? We have actually upgraded our entire systems to VTech phones. Now, I personally was very fearful of getting into the whole, figuring out what phone system to use. And I was very tempted to even do what a lot of you are probably doing, just say, well, the heck of it, I'm just going to go with the cell phone and use that for everything. But unfortunately, cell phones have a lot of limited use. The dropped calls, the receptions, the audio quality, all that good stuff. That's the reason that we are looking for a really great solution, and we went with VTech phones. And now the wonderful thing about VTech phones, and I'm going to give you guys some more specific information about that now, is that they're just so easy to use. They're just plug and play. You don't need an IT guy. You don't need to call out, your phone guy. It's simple. It's an elegant solution that all of you need to seriously consider, whether it's just you and an assistant, or it's you and your team, or frankly, the VTech 4-line small business phone system might even be perfect if you are working out of your house and use it as your home phone. VTech's new 4-line small business phone system is the perfect solution for small business owners that need to install a phone system that has the qualities and features that they have previously only been available for companies with bigger budgets. The new system is the most affordable and easy to install 4-line system on the market. The 4-line small business phone system components include the main console and the optional expandable cordless desk sets, cordless accessory handsets, cordless headsets, and speakerphones, allowing the system to grow alongside a business up to 10 extensions. The VTech 4-line small business phone system components are available in stores and online at Office Depot, Office Max, and Staples, as well as online at vtechphones.com.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows. And until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.